Cultural translation is studied through cultural anthropology, a field of anthropology focused on cultural issues among humans. This discipline questions translation through cultural differences. Indeed, translation studies are not based on language issues, but also on cultural context between peoples. Cultural translation is the practice of translation while respecting and showing cultural differences. This kind of translation solves some issues linked to culture, such as dialect, food, architecture. The main issue that cultural translation must solve consists in translating a text, showing cultural differences of this text, and respecting the source of culture. Human beings are different from other animate beings in that they are gifted with the mind that is the intellect and are capable of the thought process. They also have instinctive essence of life that some refer to as spirit. The difference gets more pronounced when we look people from different parts of the world and observe a unique way of life that they seem to be following, commonly known as culture. Culture is generally regarded as daily traditions and festivals pertaining to life of people. The day-to-day life activities like food habit, living structures, the clothing habit, organization of cities and villages, religious belief, and all constitute culture. The festival people celebrate the occasion of good harvest and other rituals like marriage, childbirth, and etc. All these are parts of culture. When Jawaharlal Nehru says culture is the widening of the mind and of the spirit, he means that these years of practice and rituals which influence us in our life now are important for the holistic understanding of situation we are in. And this becomes evident when we explore how different cultures in their unique contexts have demonstrated an expansion of thought process and a broadening spirit. First, let's define what is language. There are lots of definitions which are included here shortly. Language is used to maintain and convey culture and culture ties. Different ideas stem from differing language used within one's culture, and whole interviewing of this relationship starts one birth. Language may refer either to the specifically human capacity for acquiring and using complex system of communication or to a specific instance of such a system of complex communication. The human language faculty is thought to be fundamentally different from and much higher complexity than those of other species. Human language is highly complex in that is based on a set of rules relating symbols to their meanings, thereby forming an infinite number of possible innovative utterances from finite number of elements, a phenomenon and factor that links different cultures, the only social institution without other social institution can function, a way of expressing feelings and ideas. People try to convey whoever said that language and communication are key to factors in our societal setup was a genius. Vocabulary plays a really important and significant role in formation of language. Your vocabulary and the changes that come with the time are a reflection of your culture and changes it has undergone over the years. The relationship between language, translation, art, and culture is a key aspect of communication. Second, let's define what is translation. A converting process that helps who speak different language to understand each other's perspective and to be able to maintain a healthy communication is translation. It again gets down to connecting cultures and eradicating the cultural differences that might exist. The importance of translation in culture and languages is high because it pushes the wheel ahead for a better communication between two parties. The communication of the meaning of the source language text is by means of an equivalent target language text, so translation consists of language and culture. Jerome said that two things are necessary for a good translation: an adequate understanding of the original language, which is the source language, and an adequate command of language into which one is translating is the receptor language. Larso claimed that translation is a complicated process. However, a translator who is concerned with transferring the meaning will find the receptor language has a way in which desired meaning can be expressed. Even though it may be very different from the source language form, translation is no longer considered to be a mere cross-linguistic activity, but it significantly is a cross-cultural communication. The third one is culture. So within the nation and nations, there are several cultures. How does one define culture? Culture reflects the ways in which people behave. It is a pattern in which we analyze behavior, social habits, beliefs, traditions, and customs. When we are trying to know more about culture, language plays an important role, and to understand language, one needs translation, as one might not know of the particular language. Difficulties arising out differences of culture constitute the most serious problem for translator and have produced the most far-reaching misunderstanding among readers. Culture itself has its own limitation in transferring the source text into target text. Each society or group of people, based on their historical backgrounds, local situations, and religions with their specific language, construct their own culture, which is respected and performed and accepted along with its limitation. Limitation in translation is one of the specific features of culture, not necessarily imposed from outside world. Behavior which are acceptable will vary from location to location. Nowadays, the major problem in translation is being certainly influenced by different culture norms in the source language and target language. The translator's responsibility is to choose the norms that take priority over others. It depends on translator's decision if the cultural norms of the source language, target language, or a combination of both are essential to be considered. Upon reading the three definitions, it is quite evident that culture and translation are related to each other and go hand in hand. The relationship between culture and translation help bridge the gaps that different language might create. Going back to the fact that we have so many nations, and within a nation, there are so many languages that are spoken. The translation has been an element of healthy cultural exchange. The interdependent nature of human race and need for trade has given translation a green signal. What translation does exactly? We talk about the limitation of translation process, but let's add that translation not only transfers fundamental aspects and features of culture, but it also transfers modern science and foreign histories. Therefore, that the translator's job is to eliminate and destroy boundaries is not always true. It crosses the borders to communicate cultures. So, in conclusion, we should note that culture is not a material phenomenon. It does not consist of things, people, behavior, or emotions. It is rather an organization of these things. It is the form of things that people have in mind, their model of perceiving and dealing with their circumstances. Culture is a total way of life. The social legacy of individual acquires from his group. Culture would be transferred through language, as Sapir-Whorf argues. Different thoughts are brought about by the use of different forms of language will create different limitations. Therefore, People who share a culture but speak different languages will have different worldviews. Still, language is rooted in culture and culture is reflected and passed on by language from one generation to the next. From this one, as you can see that learning a new language involves the learning of a new culture. Consequently, teachers of language are also teachers of culture. Culture is vital in forming civilization. In other words, culture is more likely to be essence and basis of civilization. Civilization is more extended than culture, as the former one relates to the vast majority of people beyond the borders. But generally, culture belongs to a specific group of people limited inside the borders. Generally, culture belongs to the specific group of people limited inside borders. The past, present, and future together, what that something is, and the significance of it, has been a matter of debate as long as there had been a need for translation. The practical effects of practice of translation, however, are much easier to judge and document. Translation is not just a literal recasting of a work from one language to another, but it also an adaptation of one culture values and bias into another. Moreover, translations seem to be only possible way to unite all cultures in order to create cultural network, cultural globalization. However, translation which causes to insert new words from foreign language in most cases damages language by cultural, linguistically, and literary. Globalization, we mean the union of all the forms and culture that matter and that imprint their values to the art of people. Therefore, we strongly believe that to translate means to circulate. And this is what our word really needs, the freedom to find the right ways to express itself, to understand and to be understood out there by the other. If done correctly, translation has this prerogative of being the way and means to make it happen. We should not go farther than the translation of the Bible. In conclusion, it can be pointed out that the transcoding process should be focused not merely on language transfer, but also and most importantly on cultural transposition. As an inevitable consequence of the previous statement, translator must be both bilingual and bicultural, if not multicultural. In this study, we discuss on translation obstacles through the transferring culture among languages. And also we define that translation has important role in globalization of culture, especially pop culture, which causes to give advantages of the source culture. Knowing the habits of costumes, even religious costumes.